Has someone ever told you no for a role you knew you had the passion and skills to absolutely crush, but you just needed that chance? Today, I sit down with Micki Love, a powerhouse in the legal consulting arena, who climbed the ranks in a male-dominated industry, from a file clerk to COO to now president at cjAdvertising, despite being told she didn't have the credentials to lead. From overcoming introversion to becoming a sought-after keynote speaker, her journey is a masterclass in resilience and leadership, as she has turned rejection into motivation to define her worth. Get ready for an engaging conversation with Micki Love, as she shares how to take control of your narrative and rise to the top, even when the odds are against you, on this episode of Navigating No. Micki, thank you so much for jumping on with us today and being one of the first for our podcast on Navigating No.
Thanks for having me, Blue. It's so exciting. Glad to be here.
Well, before we even jump in, I have to mention this camel in your background. I know there's a story, and it's similar to my AT-AT that I had when I was 8 years old for having a dentist work done. My mom got it for me, but what is the camel story? I need to know this.
Yeah, so we're cjAdvertising, and that's our logo, is the camel you can see in the background. It was started by Arnie Malham years ago, and he has a great book. If you haven't read it, it's worth doing wrong, and he tells all about how the camel came to be part of the CJ story. So I'll leave that for your listeners to find out there. It's a really great story, and I hope they can read it sometime.
Well, I love the artistic background. It's funny how it kind of brings to life where you are a little bit, right? And because I think COVID kind of taught us, it's like with virtual, our eyes kind of look around for things, right? And we're like, oh, what's over there? What's over there? Oh, there's a camel. So there's a story behind it, and I love it.
Yes. It's always fun to see people's backgrounds too. Like it brings you into them just a little bit more, which I enjoy.
Absolutely. I'm a Star Wars fan, and I wrote a book, so that's not important right now. Well, Micki, you and I met about 2 years ago at the PILMA Summit, which is a conglomerate of law firms, mastermind programs that are coming together to become better with their law firms and to basically scale their law firms. And it's interesting. I was actually emceeing the event, and I think we had at least like 20 different speakers that week, and there were two people that stood out on the entire event of keynotes, and you were one of them, and you absolutely floored everyone. And as a keynote speaker myself, it's like, I still take notes on people that I can learn from. I'm like, oh, and the way that you engaged with the audience was phenomenal. And I think for a year, I heard about your story, and I was like, that is so amazing. And it was really, really neat. And so then for you to do it the second year, coming back and doing it at the same time, it's like you have a natural knack of being able to do that. And I look up to that. And I think that your ability to engage with the audience is just something that's a skill set that's possibly learned, or maybe you have that, but at the same time, it's like you're a natural. And I thought you were phenomenal at it. And that's how you and I met. And then you were also talking on, you had mentioned 3 things that you need to do. And I was like, well, when I lived and worked in Japan, there were 4 that we went off of. And I was like, I'd love to get you a copy of my book. And you're like, okay, I'll read it. And most people who say that don't really read the book. And so I got you a book, you read it, you posted it. And people always say, like, the best thing that you can do for an entrepreneur is get their book and then give a positive feedback on it. And you did that. And I am grateful for that, number one. But that's how we met. And that's how we started.
I love that. Thank you so much. I'm blushing now for those of you who are only listening. I am definitely blushing, but for me, being an introvert and hearing that I was able to resonate with the audience is really powerful and impactful to me. And I think I'm able to do that with that particular audience because I'm super passionate about the personal injury legal space, which is kind of how I got started, meeting Ken at PILMA and all the other places that I've been fortunate enough and blessed enough to be in the same room with a great bunch of smart, like-minded individuals. And to keep giving back on the things that I've learned over the years fuels my fire and keeps me engaged in what I do. So thank you.
It is my pleasure. Seriously. So you're doing a great job. But you mentioned you're an introvert, which is surprising to me because a lot of the speakers that in our community, uh, people are astonished at the fact that most people are introverts. I'm the
Yeah.
opposite. I'm an absolute extrovert. My wife hates me for it, but it's like it's interesting. How has that been for you to get up on stage? And about, did you ever have a problem? Do you always question yourself, or like is it more natural because you're passionate about it?
It's more natural today because I'm passionate about it, but I was really forced into this at a conference probably 25 years ago. We had a great product that we had developed at our law firm, and one of the other great lawyers in our industry, Jerry Parker, was insistent. And he's a very persuasive man. If you don't know Jerry Parker out there, at least look him up. He's done some amazing stuff in the personal injury space, but just in the business world in general, he's a very smart individual. He taught me a lot about marketing, but more importantly, I really do owe my self-confidence to Jerry and his insistence that I get on stage and teach all these other lawyers about dashboards and KPIs. And, 25 years ago in the PI world, it was just unheard of, one, for a female to be in front of a room full of male figures, which mostly all the lawyers attending those conferences back then were all male. But then for a firm to be tracking and running their business like a business and not just a law firm. So I was forced into it. So I call myself an introverted extrovert. So I can be extroverted on the things I'm passionate about, but otherwise I'm going to be reading a book on the beach a couple of days after I get it. So
Like you did with the sum of four. I love that.
exactly.
Um, when you say you were kind of forced into it, did you ever question, or did anyone ever question you and say, like, what are you doing speaking in front of a batch of guys? Like, is it, and how are you
Yeah.
going to gain their trust? Because as a speaker, I think you would agree, one of the things you have to do right off the bat is you have to make a connection with the audience
Yeah.
and they have to gain your trust, right? Like immediately. Otherwise, they're like looking at their watch, they're looking down, and it's like, how do you engage that, especially with, like, let's say a group of alphas, right? I
Yeah.
mean, these people are out for it. Like, how do I make my money? How do I start my business? They know what they want to do. It's like, who is
Yeah.
this lady to say anything to me?
Yeah.
How did you overcome that?
Well, my very first speaking gig was a small room. There was probably 15 or 20 lawyers in it. So that eased me into it a little bit. But my second speaking engagement was probably my most feared outcome that could have happened, is that I had this whole room, 400 people that I'm speaking to. Only the second time I'd ever been on a big stage to speak to a group. And, my first thought was, what would engage the partners that I worked for? And it's always the bottom line. So start out with where it impacts their pocketbook the most.
Mhm.
And so that's where I always started. And I got there pretty quick with the audience and had a lot of people nodding their head and shaking along, which gave me a little bit more confidence to keep going. And then, you get to the Q&A part at the end, and I just had this one gentleman who was set in his ways about the law practice is not a business, it's a legal profession, blah, blah, blah. And he just continued to heckle me for 20 minutes during the Q&A session. And so I think for me, overcoming the heckling, and it wasn't heckling
Mhm.
necessarily, but it felt like heckling to this introvert on this stage. And being able to withstand that and answer all of his questions in a way that showed that we always put the client's interest first, even though we can still treat our business like a business from a legal profession, was really something that I think helped me to navigate just whatever lawyer type that I may come in contact with over the years. And there's all types in every industry, not just lawyers, but it's pretty easy to earn their respect when they can see you're passionate about the things that they're passionate about. And I just enjoy it. I enjoy what I do, and I think it comes through. And so overcoming that one session of just relentless heckling by one man has really taught me a lot over the years.
Well, you do a really good job at it, seriously. And I think that confidence build and getting those repetitions in on stage in front of people really does get you comfortable in that spot. And like you said, it doesn't even have to be a lawyer, because if you're an expert in something, which you are, but as long as you know it more than most people, you really do have that expertise, right? And so then it's like that confidence has to come along with that in order to be able to share that with you. I I was asked to speak at a Comic-Con and do a panel. And they were like, well, I think with your Star Wars background, you'd be really good at it. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, what do you want it to be on? He's like, I don't know, something about Star Wars. And I have a lot of connections with the Star Wars family. And I was like, all right, well, okay, I'll do Dark Side for Life. And I got up there and it was one of my most favorite speeches I've ever given, but I was scared of the questions I was going to get because I don't know if you've ever been to Comic-Con, but when you're on the main stage and you have a plethora of different groups of people that are anime and comic books and cartoons. I mean, there was a smorgasbord of different groups of people, and I was terrified of what questions they were going to ask me on this. And this one guy, I mean, I was like, "Oh, please don't, please don't ask me something I know the answer to, right? Like, who's the biggest villain in the Star Wars right franchise?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, like this." But this one guy asked me a question. I had no idea what the answer would have been. And I just defaulted to what my expertise was, which was that Disney has taken over an amazing franchise and they have the ability to push it on. And I deflected the question enough that he got an answer that he wanted. I was like, thank goodness I survived that. But I was
Yeah.
terrified. I was terrified of the Q&A only because it was a room full of people that knew more about Star Wars than I ever would. I mean, I love it, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I can imagine. I always have that fear, and it makes you want to just plant the softball questions out in the audience so you'll at least start to gain that confidence.
Dude, in the future, I'll be in the audience and I'll just ask you a very simple question, Micki.
Oh,
Like,
it better be simple.
yes, can you explain the camel, please? Um, well, that's awesome that you've overcome it and you do have that confidence. And I hope that you hear me say that you're on your A game when you're on stage and when you're doing your work because you are an expert. What would you say would be your hardest no that you may have ever encountered? It could have been that, but what to you, what personally is the hardest no you've ever heard?
Man, I think if I go all the way back, so I started out at Hughes and Coleman as a runner and a file clerk, and I moved up to when I got my degree in accounting, I became the accountant for the firm, but I also happened to be the youngest person at the firm, which meant by virtue, you get to take care of all the computers because they were new back then, the marketing and the accounting stuff. And so we had grown the firm quite a bit over the years, and we were at a spot where we needed a COO for the firm. And so, as being the firm administrator at the time, one of my tasks was to hire a recruiter to interview for the COO position. And so, as I sat down to draft the COO description of what we were asking for this position to deliver for our firm, I was like, man, these tasks seem very familiar. Like, I feel as though I'm doing this job currently. But the one thing that I didn't have was an MBA. So, that was the one piece of my puzzle that I was missing. And so I approached the partners about, hey, I'd really like to apply for this particular position. And they were like, I don't think you have what it takes. Like, we're looking for, an MBA. And so we're going to go through this vetting process. And, I just don't think it's for you. And so, that was a hard no for me because I had poured a lot of my energy into figuring out these KPIs with the partner and really working to grow the firm that I was at. And we had grown tremendously from when I started at 17 people and we were currently at 55, look on our way to 175 eventually. And being told no, that I couldn't do it because I didn't have the right initials behind my name was a really hard no for me to take. And so, I had two choices at that point. I could either get sad and accept it, or I could stand up and own who I was and what I could deliver for that firm. And so I was a little relentless with the partners and asked for an interview with the recruiter to interview for essentially the position that I had been holding for the last 5 years. And through that, I was granted the opportunity to interview and win the position of COO for the law firm. And it was the hardest no and the biggest wake up call that I had, in that I can't let someone else determine my worth. Like, I know my worth, and I've got to make sure that when I believe in myself, others will believe in me too.
Wow, that's awesome. So then when you did win the CEO position, did you A, ever go back for an MBA, or you were just like, I don't need it? And then B, how did you look at everyone, all the partners after that?
With respect from, well, first of all, I did not go back for my MBA. We got super busy building the law firm, and I put that above most of the other priorities at the time that I had in my life before children. But yes, I did not go back for my MBA, but I still continue to respect the decision of the partners because they were trying to do what they believed was in the best interest of their firm at the moment. And I think that when someone grows up inside of an organization, that sometimes you get stuck where they don't see you as something other than where you started. And for me, that was a runner and a file clerk. Like I was literally picking their kids up from school and bringing them to the office while I was still in college. And so for them to see me anything other than that took somebody else really highlighting the fact that I had the skill set that they were looking for. And so, I don't begrudge them for that. And I wasn't upset about that. I was more upset with myself that I almost let them tell me that I wasn't worthy of what I knew I could do.
But I love the epiphany as you're writing like the tasks that are required, and you're just like, this sounds a lot. That's me. Like that is, I'm totally this person, and I have what it takes. And I think you would agree then, based off of what you're saying, is that's like the rejection of you, that hearing no, you start to question yourself, and you're like, am I good enough? Do I have enough? Like an imposter syndrome style. And it's like, you having that connection, like, why can't I be that person? Right. And why can't I continue that? And so when you assigned with the recruiter, were you nervous? Like, how did that feel like when you're like, you know what? No, I'm going to do it. I am going to
Yeah,
interview with them.
that's a great question. I was nervous, but I was also very confident in the fact that I knew this space better than anybody else that could walk into this job because, you know, I was fortunate enough to be in a room full of really smart attorneys for a very long time, being that Ken Hardison and the group of attorneys at Pilma, or Hughes and Coleman and a group of firms that they led at a round table where we had these closed door meetings where we were just pouring into each other to help grow each other's law firms. And I was the only female at the table for those conversations. And I was also privileged that when we would get back to the office, if I found something inside of that information and I thought, hey, we might be able to do this, but with a twist to make it better for our firm, that they allowed me the opportunities to do that. So I knew deep down that, you know, there wasn't anyone that I couldn't go up against in talking through where we were going to take this firm in the future and how we were going to forge a path to get there. Because I'd been intimately involved in all those details, from 15 people to 25 people to 50 people. And so, I was very nervous, but I was super blessed and honored to have the opportunity to be at the table.
You had a chance, and you had been given all of that. You had put the repetitions in prior to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. When you did connect with it and you actually got the CEO position, did you take, after like being rejected and being told no by the partners and such, has that given you the confidence in moving forward in anything? Like, were you able to take that and say, there's nothing that I can't do as long as I have the experience and that value that I believe in, then and take that and run with it for anything that you want to do?
Yes and no. So I think I still hear in the back of my head whenever I'm thinking about a new challenge, such as taking on, being the president of CJ or working with Chad to start consulting work. I still hear that little bit of a voice in the back of my head always that says, you're not good enough or you can't do this. So I don't know that I've been able to silence that little bit of a demon, despite the fact that I know that I can do these things and that I'm super passionate about these things. So for me, I guess it's a little bit of both. I want to say yes, that I've overcome that and it's far behind me. But really, if I was to be 100% honest with people, like that little nudge of fear of not being good enough creeps up quite often. And so you have to push it back down because you know you can. It's just got to keep those voices silenced sometimes.
Well, and I think that you're hitting the nail on the head in the sense like I don't care how you're rejected or if you fail or if you have that imposter syndrome, that self-doubt, or you might have to tell someone no, right? It all sucks. It's
Yeah.
not fun. And anybody who says that it's fun is kind of like, wow, you're kind of crazy, right? But it's like, I think that when you feel that, I think the difference is that what I do personally is like if you were to tell me no at something, I either would charismatically get to a yes. I would wait because it doesn't mean it's closing the door forever. I'll follow up in 6 months for a year, or I move on and I try to get to a yes from somebody else, right? But it's like, and I stay that I persevere in that. But when you tell me no, I switch the no to an on, as in like that's what inspires me. And that's what gets me to drive to be like, you know what? I don't have the title. I don't. I am not a CEO. I or a COO. I did not get my MBA, but I know that I have the value because I believe in myself, right? And I know that not only do I feel I could fit that, but I can bring something to the table. And I heard you say that. You're like, when I was listening, I didn't just say, "Hey, can I please have this position because I think I'd be good at it." It's like every day you would hear something and you'd say, let's change it this, let's tweak this. And maybe it does provide some kind of value to the company or to your boss or your leaders. Because, I mean, if we're all being honest, most people don't care about you. They care about themselves, right? Or their
Oh,
business,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. 100%. And so, and you respect that, right? Because we're all just human trying to do the best we can do every single day. And as much as we all say we try to put others first, bottom line is most people will put themselves first all the time. And so I don't think that anybody does it with, most people don't do it with ill intention. But it is hard to sometimes just look past that and know that, hey, I have it. I have what it takes and I can do this. And, squashing those voices is the biggest thing that has propelled me to keep going forward because they're still there every day.
Mhm.
Like getting on this podcast with you, I was like, "Ooh, I don't know. I'm not sure I can do this, but here I am." So showing up.
Showing up, right? And I think that's the whole point. It's if in martial arts, for example, if we're at a tournament or a competition, you have the whole lead up to that weekend, that Saturday when you're going to compete, and it's like you're so scared and you're nervous and you're anxious, and it's like as soon as you get up to the line to bow to your opponent, it's like it's game time. There's nothing else you can do. When you walk onto stage, it's time to go. When
Yeah,
you interview with that recruiter, it's time to go. And
yeah,
all we can do is bring our best. And if you believe that you have the skills and you have the value that you can bring to it, I think if you're told no, the worst thing that happens is you're told no
should
and you
tell
can
you.
move on,
Yes, I have
right?
learned that over the years. It's not as easy. I don't like to lose. I'm super competitive. So that no is never easy for me, but I always take it as an opportunity to, do a little self-reflection or learn and grow from it. Because I do think that you can reframe those no's into, how do I get a yes the next time? Right. And so as long as you don't dwell on the no, but you instead take time to focus on how do I use this to help myself and help others get where they want to go, that no becomes super powerful and can be as transformative in your life as a yes, I do believe.
That is such a valuable point. It really, really is. And it's like being able to hear that and be able to feel it are two different things, right? If if let me ask you this. If you were to sit next to you get on an airplane and you sit down and you happen to be next to a younger Micki and you saw yourself and you're like, what is the one thing that you would tell yourself to overcome or navigate no? What's that one thing that you would want everyone listening today to take away that would change their life and your life?
Mhm. I think I would say don't let the opinions of others divert you from just who you passionately, your pursuit of your true self, right? Like pursue you, pursue what you're passionate about, know your worth, and go get it. Like, don't stop until you get what you want. There's a path. The path you're on may not be the one, but there is a different path that will get you there. You just got to keep searching for it.
Oh, I love that. Not only because that's the sum of four, but at the same time, it's like that's life, right? And I think when you get on stage, the reason that you resonate with people is because you can find a path for different people, right? And the way that you speak to people are like, oh, I never saw it that way, and I think you're a natural at that. Um, in that's such an important piece about talking to yourself and being able to up it like that. And I think you've got it. And I'm so happy that you jumped on with me. And I'm so glad that things are going great for you. How
Yeah.
can people learn more about you and connect with you and learn about CJ Advertising? Like, what is it that we can do to find you?
Yeah, so mlove at cjAdvertising.com. Check us out. You can find my cell phone number there. So I'm always love speaking to people about their business, their goals, their dreams. I especially love helping other women raise up in the industry. Like, there's so few of us, and now looking back, I can see women that I've worked with, mentored, that are doing way better in the industry with cool things that I could have ever done. And to me, that's the most rewarding part. So I just invite those conversations, whether it's regarding your marketing for your law firm or operationally, how do we double your revenue, double your profits in the next 3 years? I love having those conversations with people, even if we're not engaged in a business relationship. Just having the conversation inspires something in me, and I hope it would inspire something in someone else as well.
Well, and it's not transactional. It doesn't have to be. It can be relational, right?
Correct.
And you had mentioned something about like you tagged on with me about most people don't care about you. They care about their own bottom line.
Yeah.
But I will say from experience of knowing you and as a mentor to me, you give your time freely and you
Thank you.
give your advice freely and you give out. I mean, you've heard me say this from the stage as well. It's like, when is the last time that you gave a thank you card to someone, like a handwritten card, right? And or when is the last time that you've sent one? And it doesn't have to be a handwritten card. It could be that referral. It could be that talking positively about somebody. It could be about showing trust in somebody and speaking of them. And it's like you are giving of your time and of because you are worth that. And the knowledge that you have and that you can share with people is amazing. And I just wish you the best luck. And I wish
Okay.
that you keep on going and you never give up because girl, you are a force.
Thank you. I enjoy what I do, and I'm just so blessed to have met you through the course of PILMA, and just you're such a positive light in the world, and the things you can bring to people and the smile you can put on people's faces is just it's impressive. So thank you.
I'll keep my hands down at bay, but you, thank you so much, Micki, for jumping on and being a part of my life and inspiring others. And I will definitely continue to keep an eye on you, girl. So keep it
Oh,
up.
thank you. It was good talking to you, Blue. Have a great day.
Thank you, Micki. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Navigating No. I hope you found today's conversation just as inspiring and insightful as I did. We'd love your help to make it even better. So, if you enjoyed this episode, we would love to hear your feedback. And if you think someone else could benefit from hearing it, please share it and help us spread optimism and positivity. We release a new interview every Monday, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.